Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Scott Alchevic. I'm with the recruitment team at NSCC. I'm joined by Laura Alexander from our Kings Tech campus. Hi, Laura.
Folks. Hi, Scott.
Thanks for joining us today. Just going to give a few seconds for people to start coming into the meeting. I can see some are in here already. This webinar is going to focus on two programs that we offer. Both of them are offered at our Kings Tech campus where Laura teaches. We're going to be looking at the Office Administration program as well as the Medical Office Administration program. So two Office Administration programs, but obviously the medical one would have some differences just because of the environment that you'll be working in. So that's what this session will do. We have about an hour to go over this. So before we get started, I want to acknowledge the land that we're on. Nova Scotia Community College acknowledges that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory and ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Our relationship is based on a series of peace and friendship treaties between the Mi'kmaq Nation and the Crown, dating back to 1725. In Nova Scotia, we recognize that we are all treaty people. So for everybody joining us from Nova Scotia and other parts of Canada, as well as all of you international students that are here, if you do come to Nova Scotia, I encourage you to learn more about the Mi'kmaq Nation, their culture, the history. Certainly have lots of students, staff, and faculty on our campuses as well. So I also want to let you know that you can ask questions during the presentation while I'm speaking or while Laura is speaking. There is a questions panel where you can drop your questions in there. I'll answer them. The ones that I can answer that are sort of, application questions or things like that, I'll answer those, and then I'll save a few for Laura that might be more specific for her to answer. If your question is about something on your application, maybe you've applied already, please email us at recruitment@nscc.ca. This is not really the forum to discuss personal application details and things like that. So, but we'll be certainly happy to help you get the information you need or connect you with the right people about your application if you email us at recruitment@nscc.ca. So this is a map of Nova Scotia. You can see where all of our campuses are located. We have 14 campuses. One of them is a virtual. We call it the eCampus. But Kings Tech campus is here. If you can see my mouse moving, it's located in a part of the province called the Annapolis Valley. Very beautiful part of the province. Kings Tech is in the community of Kentville, which is just a little over an hour from the Halifax area. If you were to commute out this way, that's what you'd be looking at. It's probably over an hour drive each way. And then we have campuses in other areas. So office administration and medical office administration are offered at some other campuses too, but we'll be speaking primarily about Kings Tech and sort of the way Laura and her colleague Lana deliver these two programs. If you want to learn more about our campuses in NSCC, just go to nscc.ca/explore NSCC, and you can learn more about our campuses and a whole bunch of other things there as well. So check that out. I'm going to let Laura speak to this when we get to the program details, but just very, very quickly, NSCC is different than, say, a university experience. As you know, as I showed you, we have locations throughout Nova Scotia. When you come to NSCC, you're going to be doing experiential learning. You're going to be immersed in sort of real world work environments, lots of applied learning, hands-on. The curriculum that you'll be learning is driven by industry. We partner with industry and develop our programs to ensure that you're learning the things that employers want, and so that you can be successful. And work placements and co-op opportunities also give you that on-the-job training and the work experience. So you kind of leave with a lot of applied learning and work experience when you graduate. So, and our class sizes are typically small, 20 to 30 students might be an average class size. And then our instructors like Laura come with a lot of experience from working in the industry and being connected to the industry. And, it's you're going to learn a lot from your instructors. You're going to get to know your classmates. You're going to get to know other people on campus in the community that you live in. So our facilities have all of the modern technology that you would expect. And again, if you go to that Explore NSCC section on our website, you can learn a lot more about our campuses and services and supports that are available to you and things like that. So, office administration. I'm going to ask Laura to start talking now and tell us all about the office administration program. Who is it for? What is it all about? What do you do during the year? Where do you go after you graduate? All of those kinds of things. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you. So welcome, folks. The office administration program is what's it about? It prepares you for an entry-level administrative position in any industry. That's what's so fantastic about the office administration program, because you cover such a broad range of skills. We look at developing strong technical skills in computers, for example. So upgrading to what is being used most in industry, and then developing strategies for your soft skills like excellent communication and personal skills, managing difficult situations. And those are taught and both applied in the program as well. So that's also one of the things that's really special about what we do at NSCC. We have model office spaces at our campuses where you actually complete work orders for staff and faculty and not-for-profits in the local area. So to give you an example, we've done a telephone job for the Canadian Cancer Society before, where we've supported their daffodil campaign by connecting with potential donors. That's a real job. It really supports the community, and you get a chance to practice your telephone skills that you've been studying in your courses. So it also offers opportunities for further development and really gives you flexibility in terms of maybe starting in an industry in the administrative field and then deciding that you want to transfer to other roles, or making administration your professional career choice. It really does give you lots and lots of opportunities and flexibility. So in terms of who is it for, typical, I'm just going to give you some characteristics of students that tend to enjoy this program and do well. Folks who really enjoy organization, time management skills, but don't worry if you don't have these skills, because we'll also teach you on them as well. But if you enjoy planning and coordinating things, you like communicating with people, providing good customer service, working in a team, but also working independently, problem solving, continuous learning. That's a big piece of industry feedback that we hear, is that people want employees who are able to come in with entry-level knowledge, but to keep growing and learning as the industry progresses, because we know one thing we can guarantee is that things will always change. But ultimately, I think one of the strongest characteristics is that administrative assistants want to support other people. They want to help other people succeed by providing, the admin support that allows people to do their jobs effectively. We often refer to the admin profession as being the glue that keeps everybody together. You're the one that people are going to come to and ask questions about, and sometimes it's about things that you really wouldn't think that would apply in your job role, but you have the initiative to say, hey, I don't know that, but I'm going to go find out for you. And that's sort of where the glue piece comes together. You bring, because everybody needs administrative support. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you are in need everywhere. So in terms of sort of what you might look to when you're graduating or during the program, you know, where could I work or expect to be on work placement? The answer is absolutely anywhere. And that's what this industry really provides, right? You can be, I'm going to give you some examples that I have graduates working in right now. Real estate, the legal field, the medical field, government, construction, manufacturing, education, wealth management, tourism. There's also other areas like engineering, banking, project management. Literally every industry that is out there needs admin support. And as I said, you know, sometimes an admin support can also lead you into an industry that you weren't necessarily expecting to go into as well. I have students who now work in the healthcare field, but they started in administrative support in the healthcare field and decided, you know, hey, I really love this. I want to become a CCA. And the skills that they learn as an admin are still supporting them in the role that they're doing, because every role has some form of admin. It's just how much do you do? So when we're talking about this admin, like what are these skills that I'm talking about? You are going to learn office procedures, which is things like, how do I work a fax machine? How do I use a telephone? But it also ties into those soft skills, time management, booking and scheduling appointments, organizing and conducting meetings and special events, you know, organizing a conference or something, researching, booking and managing travel. How do you manage files effectively, both on paper and electronically? It's harder than you would think to keep that stuff organized. Dealing with people, customer service, problem solving, decision making, critical thinking, using your initiative. So, you know, we'll talk about different scenarios that you could end up in, and how do you manage those scenarios, and what could influence your decision making when you're in those positions. Probably about 50% of the OA program is computer application based. If you're not into computers, that's okay. Trust me, I have had those students, as have our other faculty at other campuses. That's why you come to take the program, right? So we get a lot of people who maybe have had experience in the past using computers, but have had a break perhaps for a few years, and they're like, I am so far behind. No problem. We start from the bottom and we work up. In document production, you'll cover email, file management. Collaborative technology obviously is a huge piece and has developed considerably since the pandemic. So we look at how you can work virtually but still work together. Looking at creating business documents, writing letters, creating reports, and lots of features within Microsoft Word. We get you to sort of an intermediate to advanced level with Microsoft Word by the end of the year. Touch typing to speed up your efficiency and effectiveness, and presentation building and desktop publishing. So creating brochures, flyers, business cards, those kind of things. We'll also introduce you to using databases. And so we'll look at the basic creation of a database, as well as entering and editing data, so data entry, and using those effectively. In spreadsheets, we'll bring you up to an intermediate level in spreadsheets. And so that involves not only the basics of how do I enter data and capture it, but also data analysis, creating charts, using some functions to make calculations and analyze the data, not just present the data. We also have courses in social media. So this one is wonderful, came in about 3 years ago, and we've had such great feedback on it from students and faculty, and industry and faculty. But in this, you'll learn how to build content and use various social media platforms, as well as how to interact with customers who are using that medium. So we look at it from a customer service perspective as well. Some examples of platforms are Facebook, Twitter, new this year, TikTok. So we update that program every year based on, or that course based on what is being used by the end user at this point, by our customers and clients. There's also communications both semesters, and in that we'll be you look at verbal, non-verbal, and written communication. So really building this super strong, important skill set. In the written aspect, we'll look at reports and letter writing. In terms of content, so we kind of do format in document production, but we do content in communications and emails, of course, emails being such a key communication piece right now. And you'll also do job search, resume, cover letter, interviewing to prepare you for going out into the workplace for graduation. And then we also have bookkeeping first semester, and then computerized accounting second semester. Don't worry if you're not a numbers person, that's okay. This is an introductory level course, and it's about basic debits, credits, balance sheet, cash flow, profit and loss. And then we look at those in a manual setting in the bookkeeping course, and then a computerized setting in the computerized accounting. If you can add, and I'm taking these words comes directly from my bookkeeping instructor, if you can add and you can minus, you can do accounting, okay? It does not require complicated math. So it really is basic adding and subtraction. So please, yeah, it's a great course and really gives you a good grounding. And many admin positions do involve bookkeeping. Some of them are very focused on it. So if it's something you love, it's a great sort of niche to target. And if it's something that you don't, there's lots of roles that don't have it as well. So again, tons and tons of flexibility. And then the final course there in semester 3 is our work experience, which we're excited to have students going out on at the moment. Places you can go are really the same places that you would be expecting to go upon graduation. So there's a huge variety of roles, and you can really target places that you're interested in working. The huge benefits of work experience are obviously that you get to put your skills into action, and that can really build your confidence and really allow you to see what you've achieved during your year in the program. But additionally, it's an opportunity to network and build references, and quite often, most often, they do actually lead to positions, which is wonderful. So we're always really excited when that happens. Sometimes it's contract work and sometimes it's full-time positions. So but it's really your opportunity to shine in front of an employer and sort of take that and run with it. So whew, that's a quick overview for the Office Administration Program.
That was great, Laura. A couple questions for you. Well, sure. I'll just answer a general one that I'm seeing a lot in the questions panel, and some people are wondering if there's a January intake for this program, and this program starts every September. So if you're an international student and you're not going to make that May 1st deadline, you can apply for this program. Typically in late September, applications will open for the coming intake, so for September 2023, and that's when you can apply. The other, yeah, there were some questions just about documents and stuff like that. One thing you mentioned earlier that was really intriguing is how students, process work orders and stuff like that for other staff and faculty on campus. Is that sort of integrated with some of these classes that you've been describing?
Yes, so it's primarily for across the campuses, we primarily do it in office procedures. So that's both the fall and the winter semester. Each campus runs their office obviously slightly differently. At King's Tech, each student, we do usually 8 hours in the fall and 10 hours in the winter, and at King's Tech, we actually have the longest running one. We started it, which was awesome. And so we've got lots of history, which means that people in the community know who we are. Our faculty and staff know that it's available. So we put out our opening times, and then have people drop in, and we have work orders that somebody completes to tell us what they need. They may give us physical files, or they might be emailed to us, and we use a SharePoint system. So that's a really good practice application of collaborative workspace. So we use that, and it requires a lot of communication, both between clients, but also between students, because from shift to shift, you may have been working on something one shift and somebody else has to pick it up on another shift to finish it, for example. So we look at those communication methods, but examples of jobs are some photocopying. It might be scanning documents so we've created an electronic record of documents, typing up minutes for people. We've got designing posters and flyers. It really runs the gamut, honestly. Of what we can do in that space, and it's great because it varies every year. We always get new and exciting projects, and then we also get things that we get sort of every year. So the continuing care assistant program always do a cookbook, and so we print and co-bind that for them and put it into a beautiful document as for them to take home for the work that they've done.
Awesome. And just to satisfy everybody's curiosity, I believe we call this the Boss at King's Tech, right?
Yes, it's called the Boss at King's Tech. At Ivany, it's called the Oasis. What's the name at Straight? Oh goodness, I think it begins with a D. I can't remember. But yes, the different campuses all have their own variation and their own name for their office on campus, and they're run completely by students.
Yeah. So I think that's great. Just an example of how you're immersed in that sort of real world working environment where you're doing like real projects for people, even while you're a student. So it's
And it's also in a safe environment, right? It's a safe learning environment. It's okay for people to make mistakes. It's okay for it to take longer for things to get done. That's fine. It's all about having the experience and putting something into practice. So the thing that always I love is how it builds student confidence through the year. The difference between sort of shift one at the beginning of fall and the last shift in the winter, and people just feel absolutely like prepped and raring to go for their work terms come end of April.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of those work terms, I mean, you kind of touched on, people find themselves in legal settings, educational settings, things like that. So when it comes to work experience for people going to King's Tech, for example, do they find those options relatively close to campus, or do they have to sometimes go other places?
It typically varies depending on the student and what they are looking for. Most people are able to find placements that are sort of within half an hour, 45 minutes of where they are based. We often have students come from sort of the Greenwood Kingston area, for example, and they're often able to find placements down that way, or Berwick area. And so students have a couple of different ways of setting up their placements. Typically, we encourage students to try to arrange their own placements. Those ones are the most likely to lead to employment following graduation. And that way you've got more control about where the location is, as well as the industry that you're working in. So it means, hey, if I'm really interested in, working in construction, for example, that's the environment that I want to be in, then you can secure a position in that industry. Or if you are really interested in the legal field, okay, so you're more likely to be able to be successful at securing a placement at that time with that kind, within that field. So yeah, it varies from student to student. Honestly, everybody is individual, but I have students who are placed in the city this year because they want to go to the city. One of them is choosing to move. One of them is already located there. And so they both set up their placements to be able to be in the HRM area. Last year, I had students in Greenwood, and so they arranged their placements in Greenwood. So I've never had any issues with anybody being placed. In fact, we usually are, there is an over demand for placements. And so in terms of, we don't have enough students to fill placements. So that's always a good sign. And there's lots of opportunities with the industry. There's lots of job postings. One of the things with the pandemic is that the administration industry is actually growing because of that. So yeah, lots of job opportunities.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really like that applied social media program because, so many times we go to a Facebook page for a business and the little chat window will open up and ask, how can I help you? And most of the time you're talking to somebody that's working in the office or sort of in charge of that aspect of communications. So I think that's really interesting too. Yeah.
The students have a lot of fun with that course, and they learn a lot, but they also get to sort of really see another side to social media that as end users, most of us are only used to seeing that customer side, but you really get to see it from a business perspective.
Yeah, just before we move on, there is another question from somebody listening here. I know this program is full-time and it's in person on campus, but are there any aspects of the course that students do online in Brightspace, for example, our learning management system?
Yes, okay, so, and there's actually just been an update, and Scott, I have heard from Jadine about that I can share this. So there is the options available for studying. If you study at Ivany campus, they have a blended option. So that's part in-person, part face-to-face. We are also going to be doing the same offering for King's Tech and Strait Area Campus and Marconi Campus as well. And what will happen for King's Tech, Strait and Marconi, those three campuses all have the same schedule at every campus, and the online pieces, the blended pieces, are actually going to be, the programs are going to be combined across the campuses. So if you're at King's Tech, Stellarton or Marconi, not Stellarton, sorry, Strait, for example, taking document production 1, you'll be in a class with students from those other campuses, those 3 campuses, and that will be taught online. So 50% of the program will be online and 50% of the program will be face-to-face. And so for those face-to-face classes, you will go to your campus. So if you're at Marconi, you go to Marconi. If you're Strait, go to Strait. King's Tech, go to King's Tech. And then you'll have your classes, your face-to-face classes with your campus group. And so it does vary from campus to campus as to what those options look like and what they're going to be. And so I would suggest, if there is a particular campus that you're interested in, is seeing if you can connect with the faculty at that campus. Faculty at every campus are happy to speak to you. So if there's a particular one that you're interested in, you can speak directly with the faculty to find out more about the specifics for that campus, because it does differ.
Yeah. So that's really good, this blended approach. I will say, even when a program is blended and some of your learning is online, that learning will still be synchronous, which means
Yes.
you're going to need to be in front of your computer at a specific time during the day. So I know a lot of people, when they see blended, sometimes they think, oh, well, I can keep my full-time job while I'm in this program, but that might not always be the case.
That's right, and thank you, Scott, for pointing that out. Yeah, so when we teach blended, we teach like this. So you would see your faculty. We use Microsoft Teams, which is a Microsoft Office product. And it's a fabulous opportunity. Even if you're sort of like, oh, I'm not really an online learner, that doesn't, oh, I don't feel good about that. It's a fabulous opportunity to learn about collaborative learning programs, working, because this is how so many more in employment fields are moving towards in industry, is a blended work environment. And so this gives you the opportunity to learn how to work within that, how to do group work, how to use the technology, because that's part of what we will be teaching you, is how do I use this Microsoft Teams? How do I be in a breakout group? How can I work in one document when my classmates are working in the same document, and do that effectively? And so we have live and what we call synchronous classes. And so, we will have instruction, we will have activities that you can do that you'll be doing online, and then presenting back to the class. That sometimes raises questions about technology. So as part of the program costs, we do include having a basic laptop setup as part of what you should be prepared for coming into the program. We do know that Nova Scotia Internet isn't fabulous everywhere, so your faculty, especially in the rural areas, your faculty are aware of those issues, and we have ways of working around them. So please don't let that discourage you either. Plus, you can always go to campus and use a campus computer if you want to. That's always an option. Yeah, there's always availability for that as well.
Yeah. So I would suggest, there's a question here, what percentage of the program is online? And I think you kind of indicated that it's 50%, but that could vary by campus. So I guess I would recommend, if you wanted to reach out to recruitment@nscc.ca, maybe pose that question, that what.
Yes, I can only speak specifically for King's Tech, Strait, and Marconi. They will be 50%.
50%.
If you're looking at another campus, then yes, hopefully recruitment can help you with that.
So there you go, the 50% online at King's Tech, Ivany, and Strait area campus. And for anybody listening, or Marconi. Again, like that goes back to the map I showed, like King's Tech's in Kentville, Ivany's in Dartmouth, Strait area is Port Hawkesbury, and Marconi is Sydney. And both those last two places are in Cape Breton, which is in the northern part of the province. So let's see, that question we answered. Yeah, regarding the work placements, those are typically unpaid, correct? the 5 to 6 week work placement? Yeah.
Yes.
I know in some
so you
cases,
do that.
some students have been able to negotiate getting paid during their work experience, but that's not the norm. I think, you know, like you said, if you have a relationship with somebody and they're willing to take you on, maybe you can negotiate some sort of compensation for that work experience. But we don't expect employers to pay our students.
No, no, it's typically 5 weeks unpaid. I think in the 10 years I've been teaching, I've had a handful of students who have been paid, and they usually have pre-existing relationships with organizations.
Okay, and okay, so couple of these questions, I'll answer a bunch of questions that I received regarding applying. So for international students, the deadline to apply for September 2022 is very soon. It's May 1st. So that means submitting an application. That also means completing that application with your transcripts. If you can do that by May 1st, then we will assess your application for September 2022. If you can't complete your application by that date, you'll be assessed for the next intake. One exception to that is if you already have a study permit, we'll certainly take a look at your application. The reason we have that deadline is just because of processing times for study permits, and so May 1st is the deadline to apply for programs this September, unless you already have a study permit. So if you miss the deadline, that's okay. You can still apply. It's just your application will be assessed for the next intake, which is September 2023. And when I say complete an application with transcripts, what we mean by that is those transcripts, your academic records, have to be sent to admissions, and you can do that by email, but it has to come from the institution that you went to school. Somebody from your school needs to send those documents to admissions, usually an official in their, you know, records or enrollment department or something like that. And if they can send that to admissions at nscc.ca, and we'll attach that to your application. And if we can do that before May 1st, then it'll get reviewed and assessed for the coming intake. But I would encourage all international students to understand the criteria for obtaining a study permit. Getting accepted into a program is just one piece of that. There are some other things that you have to do in order to be eligible to study in Canada. So that's why the processing times take a while. And, you know, we have a terrific website on our NSCC website for international students that talks about that stuff. And maybe I'll point that out as we get to near the end. But I think what we'll do now is move on to the next program, Laura.
Sure.
Oh, I have to zoom out. Okay, so we're going to move on to medical office administration now.
Yeah. All right. So the medical office administration, what's that all about? It's really about working in a medical environment, such as hospital departments, doctors' offices, for example, to be a vital part of the healthcare team. So you would provide compassionate and professional services to patients, visitors, and healthcare providers. So the program itself will give a solid foundation in computer technology, medical terminology, professional ethics, confidentiality, and standard office practices. Oh, excuse me. So that's things like billing, preparing medical correspondence, registering and scheduling patients, and managing health records. The characteristics of students who see success in this program are those who have a strong ability to communicate professionally, verbally, and in writing, with a great sense of customer service. Strong computer skills, again, those are things that you will start at the basics and build up. Excellent organizational skills. And this is really important in this industry, the ability to prioritize upon short notice, but also maintaining that attention to detail and accuracy. So important in the medical field. The commitment to confidentiality and privacy, working with minimal supervision and problem solving, adaptable to change and flexibility, and most importantly, loving to work with people, having compassion. One of the things that, because I teach in the medical office administration program as well, and one of the things we talk about is that you may be working with people on the worst day of their life. And so you need to be able to communicate effectively, have compassion for the place where they are, but still be able to get your job done. In terms of what you can do for work experience and graduation, the medical field is huge. And so you've got many different medical settings, hospital departments, and that can be broken down into wards, laboratories, health records, diagnostic imaging. Then you've got doctors' offices. Insurance companies and government departments also need medical support for records that they work with. Chiropractic, osteopathy, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, massage therapy, mental health and counselling services, community clinics, public healthcare centres, the VON, the Victorian Order of Nurses, and dental and optometry practices, and long-term care facilities. So huge range when we talk about healthcare. So in terms of what you're studying in the healthcare, do you mind bringing up the program map? Perfect, thank you very much. So you will note that some of the courses have the same titles or have some similarity to the to the office administration program. And that is true. So your communications courses are similar, but what we do in both office administration and medical office administration is we really target to your industry. So for example, when I teach communications in the MOA program, which is our acronym for the medical one, we target talking about letters for patient transfer of care. Whereas if we are in the office administration program, we might target that letter to inviting attendees to a conference seminar. So it has the same kind of content in terms of letters, emails, written communication, verbal, non-verbal communication, and then also the interviews, the job field, your resume, cover letter as well in the second semester. Document processing 1 and document processing 2, very similar to document production in OA. There is some focus on medical documentation though, especially in the second semester. And in terms of touch typing, the speed requirements are higher in the medical office administration course due to the requirement within the industry. So industry standard is really important when we're developing our courses. And so it's 40 words per minute first semester, 60 second semester, which is in line with industry standards for job hiring. We've also got medical office procedures. So with medical office procedures, you are really covering those pieces around preparing medical correspondence, registering and scheduling patients, organizing and conducting meetings, taking minutes, that kind of things, and managing healthcare records, customer service, those pieces. Anatomy and physiology, so there are 2 courses for this, one each semester, and this is the part, this is probably one of the more intense courses if you ask students and graduates, because it does involve a lot of rote learning. This is the part where you have to learn all the different parts of the body, all the veins, all the muscles, all the bones, And then you also have to learn the medical terminology that's used in the healthcare industry. And so there's sort of, don't want to scare anyone, but there's a little bit of Latin, but don't worry, it will be broken down, and it's actually really cool how language, by looking at the different parts of a word, you can know what it means. And that's what you do with the terminology piece. And that's really one of the big parts that differentiates between the office administration program and the medical office administration program, because that is very specialized to the healthcare industry. Okay, where am I to? Oh, yes, the medical office systems. Thank you, Scott. So for that one, that's really, you look at different billing systems. And so there are 2 or 3 billing systems that you look at. And one of those is in particular is specialized to the Nova Scotia healthcare. And to Capital Health, and we actually have somebody who comes in who works for the Nova Scotia Health Authority and comes and teaches that course to you. And so you really get an inside look into those very specific client-centered database systems. In office administration, it's a more generalized database course that you take. And then medical office transcription. There are some things in the industry that have not changed, and one of those is dictation. And so doctors will often take their notes and verbally record them for you. And so transcribing them is listening to the notes and typing them up. And again, another reason why your typing speed is so important. So there's a credit course related to that. You also do spreadsheets. That is an introductory level spreadsheet. So it's not as advanced as the one that you would take in office administration. So we go more in depth with that in the more generalized field for office administration. I think that covers everything. Work experience, but I kind of tied that into into the job field. But really, work experience, very similar. It's a 5-week work experience that takes place at the end of April through May. Certainly at King's Tech, a large majority of our placements are made locally in the hospitals in the Annapolis Valley area. I would say typically 2/3 or as much as to 80% of our students are placed in the hospitals. Those who aren't placed in hospitals, it's usually because the student would prefer not to be in that setting. We've always been able to place everybody in the healthcare system without any problem, and my understanding is that that's pretty consistent across the province. If you want a placement at a hospital, you should be able to get one. There are some sort of immunization requirements to be aware of. Don't worry if you don't have them when you start. At the beginning of the program, your instructor will cover everything that you're going to need in order to be able to work in the healthcare environment. For example, hepatitis B is one of them, but they will provide all the information that you need about ensuring that you get your immunizations and your immunization records prepared in time to go on work placement.
Excellent. Here's an interesting question, and I think I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm curious myself, but somebody has said this program sounds a little more challenging than office administration, but maybe it's because of those anatomy courses. But what's your opinion, or what's your insight on that? Yeah.
Yes, we do. The medical office administration is more intense than the office administration program. They are both packed full. You learn a huge amount in really it's 7.5 months that you're in the classroom before you go on work experience. So we do pack a lot in, but especially because of the rote learning piece that comes from the anatomy, physiology, and terminology, it is a more intense program for the medical office administration field. You really, especially MOA, we really say you need to treat it like a job, in that you come to every class. If you miss a class, you're going to be, it is hard because you cover a lot of material, and you know, in those off hours. So for both programs, you're scheduled in classes 24 hours of the week, and so those hours that you're not in class, you need to be focused on your material. Those are the most successful students. The students who come to class, the students who engage in the material, and the students who treat their program like it's a job, and you know, minimum 40 hours a week, and sometimes some overtime in there as well, depending on the workload that week. So yes, and you do, you, in some of the courses in MOA, you have sort of midterms and final exams. We don't do that in the office administration program typically. We do sort of more like we work on a topic and then we move on to the next one and then the next one, where especially the anatomy, physiology, and medical terminology. Sometimes my students are like, I'm distracted, I've got a midterm tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, we'll change, we'll do an extension date for everybody. You've got midterms, you can have a couple of extra days on your assignment, because you know that really takes priority over the other subjects at that point in time. So
I think that kind of underscores two points we made earlier. One is, you know, sort of how flexible and accommodating we can be to student needs and things like that. But then the other piece is that where we work with industry when we're developing these programs, like industry wants medical office administration students to know anatomy and physiology and things like that. So it's a requirement for employment. So that's why those courses are there for anybody, you know, wondering, like, if I'm going to work in a medical office, why do I need to know anatomy and things like that? But you know, it's certainly, like you say, sets you up for more success, I guess, in terms of employment. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if you're trying to transcribe a doctor's notes and they're saying a word that's this long, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce one, but you need to be able to, you know, effectively translate that, and be able to spell it correctly, because that's really, you know, that accuracy and attention to detail is so important. You can make such a difference as an admin support, in somebody's success or failure, in terms of treatment, because of your accuracy and your attention to detail. So those are highly valued and essential in the healthcare industry.
Is there a course for deciphering doctors' handwriting?
Not exactly.
I do job learning. Yeah.
There is some of that, and there is some of it in medical office transcription as well, I believe. But you also cover proofreading in document processing as well. So that's sort of learning how to, if somebody wants a document edited, and it's almost like a written language of symbols, that allows you to understand what they want changed.
Awesome. Well, there you go. That's the program map and sort of what your year looks like. And I just want to reiterate what Laura said just about full-time programs. You know, typically at NSCC, when we say full-time, we're talking like, you know, 25 hours a week of instruction, whether that's on campus or online. But you should also make the commitment to, you know, reserve that amount of time, if not more, depending on what program you're in, for reviewing material, getting your assignments done, all of reading, There probably is going to be some reading involved and things like that. So I know, you know, NSCC, we have a lot of different learners, people right out of high school, people that have been out of high school for a while, might be working, might have families. So we do try to make a lot of accommodations, but we really rely on you as the student to make that commitment to a full-time program. And then we try to work with you within, you know, reason in terms of accommodating your schedule and your learning style and things like that. So there's lots of services and supports available, tutoring, academic supports and things like that. But really, at the end of the day, this is a full-time program, so you should be expecting full-time hours as if it were a job, like Laura said. So just want to kind of underscore that point that you made. Now let's see. So, okay. Some questions here about postgraduate work permits. Maybe I'll address that at the end. There is a question here, international student, do you need to get the immunizations done before you leave the home country? But I think you said that those can be done a little bit later once you get here. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. So no, it can all be done once you're in Canada.
Okay. If you can get them, if you can get them in your home country, would you advise doing that, or are there differences?
I don't know. I'm not gonna commit to an answer on that. I would suggest speaking to somebody who oversees work term for for MOA students, because that's not something I do, so I'm not comfortable.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so if you're curious about that particular question, maybe email us at recruitment@nscc.ca and we can connect you with the right person on campus to address that question. It's a tricky one because it's, you know, for health and human services programs, you're required to have immunizations and things like that in order to work in those healthcare environments. So we're pretty specific about what those are. Yeah. And the cost for the immunizations, I'm not sure. I don't know if you know, Laura, but again, maybe that would be something you can email us about. We can get that information for you. Okay, so let me just zoom out of this. I think we're at the question. I mean, we've been asking questions the whole time, which is great. And we're at 3 o'clock now. So I just want to quickly go to a browser window here somewhere. Go. And very quickly, I just want to show everybody how to find these programs that we're talking about. So programs and courses. You can go to area of interest. You can take a look at the A to Z listing. I'm just going to go up in the search bar here, start typing office. I get office administration as a result right away. Click on this link, and this takes me to the program page. So a lot of the stuff that Laura was talking about, sort of high-level stuff, is listed here in the overview tab. The locations and availability tab is here. You can see there's the different delivery methods. We've got asynchronous, online, blended, in person. So lots of options there. King's Tech is in person at the moment, but I think that's probably going to be updated to blended.
Yeah, they're just in the process of updating it now. I got the notification just before I joined the meeting, the webinar today. Oh, so yeah. King's Tech, Marconi, and Straight will all be going to a blended option.
Okay. Yeah. So that's just check back on the website there, and that should be updated. Admission requirements: high school graduation diploma or equivalent is what's required. International students, we've got a link here where you can see what equivalent documents we look for. The tuition and stuff is there. $36.20 is our basic tuition, but there are some program costs like a laptop and other things that you should consider. Career and future studies, Laura had talked about that. What's the certified administrative professional Just, I guess it's a sort of a designation or certification you can get in Canada?
Yeah, it is. And so, and I did mention it very briefly, but it was right at the beginning
Okay.
when I was talking about further development opportunities.
Oh, yes.
So the Certified Administrative Professional is a designation. So you have to have about 2 years of experience, and you have to have taken a few courses that they require. So this is the International Association of Administrative Professionals, but then you can use that designation after your name, and it requires continuous professional development, so it supports your growth and your learning. And there are other fields that you can do further. So there's project management, for example. There's a PMP, which is another designation, and depending on the industry that you go into, I have a graduate who's in the insurance industry, and she's now doing her brokerage exams. And so, there's lots of different opportunities for study.
Awesome. Well, and that's just an example of how our program can get you onto that different pathway. Courses. So we talked about those, but there's some descriptions. So office administration program page, medical office administration, same thing. If you search for that, you'll find the program page for that listed here. The other thing I wanted to just quickly point out for the international students in the audience, if you go to our admissions tab and click international students on the left-hand side, there's a little sub-site that we've created specifically for you with lots of information about the questions that I've been seeing about things like working in Canada after graduation. So postgraduate work permit information is there, study permit information, the criteria that's needed, travel documentation, services for students. So there's lots of interesting stuff there to answer some of those questions. And I would encourage you to take a look at those. And very quickly, we also have other webinars that you can sign up for. So, and these are recorded. So if there's one on here that you like, but you might not be able to make time for, just send us an email and we'll get you connected to that session. Laura, thank you so much for sharing that information and sort of what life is like at King's Tech in these programs. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, and hopefully we'll look forward to seeing some of you guys in September.
Are you open to receiving emails if I put your email in the chat here?
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. Please reach out if you have questions.
Laura.alexander@nscc.ca. And I guess your colleague Lana is also in the medical office, so if maybe
that's correct.
Yeah, you may end up hearing from Lana as well. But oops, I don't think I sent that to the whole audience. So let me just type that in again. And Laura, thank you. I guess if you have another meeting to go to, I'm going to end this very shortly. But entire audience, there we go. So Laura's email is in the chat there.
Oh, I think you missed a C out of the NSCC.
Oh my goodness, yeah. See what happens. I would fail at office administration because I'm
not so much on the touch typing. That's okay. We all have our specialities.
All right, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Laura. I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll hope to see you at NSCC someday. Bye for now.
Bye folks.